Hi everyone. I came and watched a couple of the talks beforehand. I arrived a bit early, and for a moment I thought I was at the wrong conference. It was so technical. The whole wall was covered in code. So I thought, well, I better tell you, I don't know anything about technology stuff, really. So I think I'm just the kind of joke at the end where I say, what was all that about, and can we go and have a beer as fast as possible because it's a nice day? Something like that. Anyway, so I'm going to talk really fast because you want to get out there in the sun probably and get a drink in your hand. In fact, you've got great stamina. So what I'm going to do is ask a series of provocative questions or put those thoughts in your mind. You don't have to answer them. I will take questions at the end. I want to talk about innovation. All this stuff comes from this teeny little book called The Smart Thinking Book, which I wrote, and it just happens to have a chapter in it about innovation, which is lucky because that's what this conference apparently is all about. So I'm going to go fast through 10 of those, and then at the end I have 10 copies to give away. So if you like what I'm saying, you have to storm the stage to get a copy. But if no one comes, then I'll realise that no one really cared about what I said and it won't matter. So I'll just go home in disgrace after that. Right, so my first question is this. Often when I'm chatting to clients, people in business, they're talking about innovation. Let's do some game-changing stuff. Come on, let's break the mould. Give me a first. I want a paradigm shift. And you think, I don't know what you're talking about. So it's really difficult. If you put someone on the spot and say, can you define for me, please, innovation? And they go, Now, I was intrigued last year. There was a really, really interesting thing done. Two business school professors, the brilliantly named Uzi and Jones, they wanted to know, everybody's talking about originality and saying this is new, but we want to analyze all the scientific and creative papers to really find out whether they actually had original stuff in them. And they designed something really clever, where apparently it's called an algorithm. I don't know what that is, but apparently you just take this algorithm and you just drop it into all these Google papers on the, what's it called? The internet? Something like that. That thing. And the algorithm works out by analysing all the material in these papers, whether they said anything original or not. They analysed 17.9 million papers, and they found that over 90% of everything in those papers had already appeared before somewhere else. Interesting. So my definition of innovation is 90% old stuff with a 10% twist. Okay. Shall I go now? Right. Okay. So my first question is here. Is anything really new? Don't answer that, but it's worth asking. But it's all about where you can steal stuff from. And this is what all musicians know. Genius steals, okay? It's not where you get it from, it's where you take it to. Ah. Okay. So, 10 fast ideas from the book. Number 1, be relentlessly curious. Okay? Now, a lot of people say, well, that was a great idea. They were lucky. But it's nothing to do with luck, because apparently luck is where chance favors the prepared mind. In other words, you have to be thinking about something, and then you will find an interesting place to put it in due course. So I call that being relentlessly curious. Now, I also call it being a mental magpie. Now, sometimes when I talk, I use words like that, and people say, I don't know what you're talking about. So I looked it up. Apparently a magpie is a sroka. Is that right? Get in. Right, okay. The black and white bird that nicks bright, shiny things and puts them over there. But it doesn't really know why. It just puts them over there and thinks, that'll be useful one day. Right? Okay. Right. So what I want to know then, first question for innovation, is you'll never innovate unless you can be really curious, and probably should make a habit of it. So I want to know then, where do you get your stimulus from? And I tell you something, you won't get it from a computer screen, or if you're just sitting at your workstation with your blinkers on, okay? Like those horses up in the old town, right? Just like this. You've got to get out and pay attention and find this stuff, and one day you'll find a good reason to attach it to something that you're working on. So what habits could you change or introduce to make that more the case? Now, my next question is all about whether this thing is close or far away. Now, in Britain, there's a comedy program called Father Ted, and there's a really unintelligent young priest in it. And if anyone's seen the scene, it's funny. He's trying to explain the difference between a small plastic cow that is this size and a very large one that is real, that is over there in a field, but to him, it looks the same size. And he's saying, no, hang on, this one's close, that one is far away. Close, far away, and he can't get it. Now, the interesting thing about innovation is a lot of people think, it's all like this, so I must now go way, way over here. But if you think about it, that's not how things really work. And there's a very bright scientist called Stuart Kauffman. And he talked about this concept called the adjacent possible. It's the thing that is right next to the thing that you're working on, and it can be done. Just. So the adjacent possible is just here from that. It is not way over there. And that is a humbler way of thinking about innovation rather than thinking that you're going to invent the new light bulb or something. So what next single step can you take is a question there. Third idea, break with the past. Now, a lot of people, does anyone here know anybody who's really boring because they always do stuff the same way? Oh, you're so polite. What? What, nobody, like your boss, or for example? I mean, most people are creatures of habit. They say, well, that works, so we'll just do that. And they just do it again. Now, it's really interesting. The best way to get onto new thinking is to break with the past. You know, we've done all that before, that's fine. In this ideas session, we're not allowed to mention any of that because we've done all that. It's not interesting. We want to step forward, okay? So, can you break with the past? How can you forget what you already know? That's not an easy thing to unknow, because once you know something, you can't unknow it, which is a bit like if someone shows you a photograph of your friend naked, and once you've seen it, you can't unsee it, right? It's the same, say, thanks for the imagery, I didn't need that, right? Progress, not perfection, the fourth idea. Who in the room is a perfectionist? Ooh. You're trying to quit. I love it. So if this were a design conference, what number of people would put their hands up? Yeah. Now, lovely person at the back, you said, what's your name? Yeah. Alex, thank you. You say you're trying to quit. Can you quickly tell the audience why?
Because if I don't, I will never get anything done. And even if I do, I will never be happy about it. So I will keep thinking about the things I already did.
So it's like Perfectionists Anonymous, isn't it? Yeah, my name is Alex. I am a perfectionist. I confess. And it's horrible, isn't it? Do your partners, the people that you work with, do they like you? It's a really interesting thing, a little off topic, but perfectionists are really, really annoying to work with, particularly if it's your boss, because you do this amazing piece of work and you put it in front of them and they say, yeah, thanks. I notice on page 452, you used Helvetica instead of Garamond Bold. And right? Someone's nodding? Irritating. Do that enough times, and the person receiving those comments thinks they're no good, and they leave. But there we go. That's a whole different thing. Anyway, the point is, you can't know when you've arrived at perfection. Can anybody define perfection? And would it be the same for everybody? So you're never going to get there. So you might as well do your thing, give it your best shot. And my mantra for that is progress, not perfection. We're moving on. We never quite get there. That's okay. You'll get somewhere. Okay? Progress, not perfection. Now, planning. Plan B versus plan A. It's okay to yawn, mate. It's all right. I want to get to the bar as well. We'll get there soon. Don't worry. Right. Okay. Right. Now, so years ago when I started in business, people would say, right, we're going to have an all-day strategy session to do our 10-year plan. Yeah. It's funny. The guy over there is just going, fuck, really? And then a bit later, someone says, well, hang on, this interweb thing has come along. Things are moving quite fast now. What's our 5-year plan? Like this. This guy's laughing because who's done a 5-year plan? Anyone done a 5? Yeah, sorry. She said, yeah, I'm sorry. So I have to confess. What's your name? Aaron. My name's Aaron, and I confess I did a 5-year plan once. Oh, God. And then it was a 4, and then a 3, and then a 2, and then a 1, and then a 6-month plan. And now you're lucky if I can't even plan next week. It's all going to go wrong, probably, or change. Now, you could get really depressed about this. Or you could actually note that often plan B is a lot better than the plan A that you originally had. And being flexible and not getting emotionally vested in your plan so hard can be a brilliant, brilliant thing. Plans are highly deceptive because they're usually fantastically art-directed. These plans go up on the wall. They call it the spurious authority of type. In other words, once it's typed up and it looks marvellous, all these stupid executives look at it and say, oh, that's the plan, you see. You say, yeah, it's all going to happen. Look, there's that yellow bit there. That's marvellous. That's going to happen by that date. Yeah, right. That's the plan. There's the plan. 2 weeks later, poof, the whole thing's gone. And it doesn't work. So we need plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. And do not get too committed to the plan, because the plan ain't going to be what's going to happen. It's your flexibility as you go along, which allows you to innovate much better. Now, act yourself into a new way of thinking. Now, here's an interesting way of looking at things. There's an old academic joke, and these academics are sitting round. Don't worry, it's only got one sentence punchline. And they're sitting around and they're saying, yeah, it works in practice, but does it work in theory? That's interesting. You see, I didn't know if that joke would travel, but it does. Your English is absolutely fantastic, and you're also clearly very academic as well. So it works in practice, but does it work in theory? Well, who cares about the theory? And so far too many people in companies they spend a lot of time talking earnestly, a lot of coffee, a lot of biscuits, a lot of charts, a lot of this, a lot of leaning back and all this. It's boring, and it's all conceptual bollocks. It doesn't actually have any practical application, and a huge percentage of the people discussing these matters don't actually know how to do it. And it strikes me that with all your technical skills, you actually know how to do the stuff. Hallelujah. At least I've met someone. At last, someone who can actually do something. So the point about this is essentially you cannot or are very unlikely to think your way into a new way of acting, because the thinking is purely theoretical, and it's not until you enact it that you're getting somewhere. So the little mantra with this is you act yourself into a new way of thinking. The action, oddly, comes first, and once you've forced that, people's mental practices, as it were, will follow on. Okay, number 6. See, I'm moving fast. Number 7, prototyping as shorthand. Prototyping was mentioned in a couple of the previous chats, and I was delighted to hear it. A lot of people will sit around talking away about stuff, but they won't build the thing. And that's why I love people like you, because you actually make stuff. Thank God for that. So much stuff, theoretical otherwise, it never gets off the drawing board. Now, there's one little detail here that I find really nice. You've all heard of brainstorming, but who has ever heard of body storming? Now, it's not sexual. Although, yeah. What, so no one's heard of body storming? Right, you heard it here first. One of the easy things to do when you make things is to say, I am now going to make a prototype of that thing. And it either works or it doesn't, takes refinement, and you move on with your thing. That's a tangible item. But how do you try to prototype a service? Because it's not a thing. And so in body storming, what we do is we get people to enact what the service now could be to see how well it works. And a classic example would be on the phone. So you want to have a call center, you want to change how the whole thing works, you will simulate these calls by body storming, or you will interact how a bank teller will interact with a customer and so forth with movement. You've probably seen those guys who say, I will now reenact the Battle of Waterloo through the medium of dance. Have you ever seen that guy? He's on YouTube. Yeah, I get distracted easily. So, body storming, if you cannot practically build the item as a working prototype. Okay, prototyping is shorthand. Right, speed. Suggestion, speed doesn't kill. Now, there's the old saying that speed kills. But there's a guy in Britain called Jeremy Clarkson. He says... you've heard of him, have you? He's quite notorious. Actually, I disagree with almost everything he says. But I did like this thing that he said. He said, speed doesn't kill. Becoming stationary really fast, that'll do it. So when you're moving at pace, unfettered with nothing in the way, this is good. Now, my little metaphor for this is all to do with momentum in projects. Now, we have a thing called the motivational dip, and this usually begins where someone says, deep joy, we're starting this new project, Project Dandelion. And you get very excited about it, and the motivation goes up, and then at a certain point you think, God, this is really boring, and it drops away. And that's the motivational dip. Okay? And then you have a learning phase, and you either understand it and come up and out, or it falls away like that. Has anyone had a personal relationship like that ever? Yes, the lady there, yeah, she's thinking, oh, God, that's my boyfriend all over. Yeah, right, yeah, she's on it, yeah. Yeah, right, so the motivational dip is something that we'd like to avoid if we can, and all the studies show that once a project starts to lose its energy, it just, and it trickles away. So when we're innovating, we want fast stuff, and to keep this momentum going, even if it means, actually, we've got to stop there because that's not working. Keep these things going fast, and you can draw little timelines just on a scratch piece of paper of how well this project is going to move along, and you can predict whether it's going to do that like the lady's relationship did over there, sadly. Right, so the fastest, easiest thing we can do straight away, speed doesn't kill. Okay, see, I've only got 2 more left. We're nearly home and dry. I've got to swear now. Now, there was a gentleman earlier talking about writing manuals and all this stuff. Does anyone know what RTFM stands for? Thank you. Of course you do, because you're all engineers and all that stuff. So read the fucking manual. Yeah? And I understand that this was invented by frustrated, exasperated engineers. Constantly, it's the IT help desk principle, isn't it? Where people come up and say, how do you do that? Page 27, for heaven's sake. Yeah. So, I may be preaching to the converted here. I am sure I probably am. But you've got a yin-yang between how well these materials are written. The lady earlier was just talking about plain language. The manual could and should communicate how things should work. It's got to be understandable. Equally, the onus is on the user to actually read the manual. And plenty of people don't. Are there any people in the room who just actually don't, and never read the instructions, just rip it open and go straight away? Anyone do that? Whoa, quite a lot. Yeah. Don't do that. Okay, right. So, and finally, a little point here. which we call fool's gold white space. Now, this is all about when you're looking at innovations and you fool yourself into thinking there is an excellent opportunity when in fact there isn't one. Now, as you know, fool's gold isn't gold. It's a form of pyrites which looks really similar, but it's not the same stuff. And when strategists draw these large market maps like this, grids, and they think there's a lot going on here and a lot here and a lot here, ooh, this one's completely blank. They think that's handy. There's a gap in the market. To which the reasonable question is, yes, but is there a market in the gap? Ah, yeah. So that strategic white space is called fool's gold white space because it looks tempting, but there's probably a very good reason why people aren't there. So we want to know, what do they know that we don't? Because we don't think we want to be there, even though we're somewhat tempted to innovate into that area. So that was fast and furious. I'm going to wrap up. That's my summary thought. Innovation can be simple. I'm not a technical guy. You can move things faster in that type of way, should you wish. Brevity equals intelligence. In other words, the shorter it is, the better it is. You probably have heard mention of Blaise Pascal from the 1600s, said, "I'm sorry this letter is so long. I did not have time to make it shorter." On message, perhaps, for the lady who was on before me, with regard to brevity, when it comes to making your very technical areas so much simpler and easier for everybody else to understand. And certainly for me, you could make it really simple for me and I still wouldn't get it. But you'd still be doing a great job. So essentially, thank you for listening. For those, I know this is an international thing. This book is coming out in all sorts of different languages, really peculiar ones. The Spanish one is good. I've seen that. When I say it's good, I mean, I would say that. I wrote it. I don't mean that. It's been translated well, transliterated well. And then weird deals like Korea, Greece, and Thailand. It's a pretty odd combination. There you go. Now, finally, just to let you know, there are various other books out in these series which you can get to grips with if you want. I don't want to do a big marketing job. But for the prize giving or raffle or whatever it is that we're about to do, look at that, you see, I've got a copy of, hang on a minute. That's it. Actually, I don't know what that says. This is my book called it's called Start, and then it should say something like How to Run Your Own Business or something. Is that what it says? In fact, I'll get the guy to do it here. Can you tell me what the subline says? Yeah. What? What does it mean?
How to run your own business.
Brilliant. Right, okay, so I have a copy of that to give away for anybody who is there anybody here who's starting their own business or just thinking about it? Actually, if you're thinking about it and your boss is here, then maybe you don't put your hand up. The lady that... Give it to the lady behind. Do you want it? Yeah, you have it. There you go. Right, so I think I'm done, aren't I? Have I done it all? Yeah, I've done it. So I'll take questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kevin. You know so much, like lots of energy on this stage.
Lots of energy.
Yeah.
It's got to be done. If you want to get to the pub fast, it's the only approach.
Questions?
Yep. I'm Maike from SUSE Linux in Germany. First, I need your book in German.
You need the book in German?
Yes.
Right, okay.
And second, I need the book in English now, but I'm not fast enough to storm the stage. I'm sorry.
Right, let's get one to that lady immediately. Right.
Okay.
Storm the stage. Right, okay. Right, come on. That's for you. Earmarked. Yeah.
Thank you.
That wasn't a question. That was
It
just
was.
was it?
It was a request. Okay. It's part question.
It's a top question. Okay.
Yeah, we do have questions.
Lady at the back.
Hi, so I'm Agnieszka, and you may be surprised, but I'm a technical writer. And I would like to ask you, do you have any advice how to keep the momentum going on projects? Because I have this quite difficult case. My team is working as a kind of a service team for the developers. So whenever somebody has a documentation request, they just send it to us, and we work on it.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we all work remotely, and the teams are spread across the world. Everybody's in a different time zone. We've never seen each other, so it's difficult to develop personal relations. And there are lots of projects which start at a great speed and then they die down, and the developers just ignore your emails because it's easy to do that. And you're not there personally to just come at their desk and say, hey, do this for
God,
me.
this is so depressing, isn't it? Okay, so you've articulated pretty much every frustration of every modern business, I think. Remote working is a complete disaster. I mean, I have to train people often, and they are trying to sell creative concepts to people they've never even met in countries thousands of miles away. It's completely insane. So I would definitely recommend that any project team, at the beginning of any project, if it is humanly possible, should physically meet somewhere, just once at least. That would be a start. Yes? Here, here. Marvellous. Erin says, here, here. Second thing I would recommend is that at the beginning of the project, everybody working on it is very entitled to ask, how long is this thing roughly going to last? Dead silence, right? What's the longest projects anyone's ever worked on? What? Months, days, weeks, years, anything? Years. God, it's dreadful, isn't it? You see, it's not pacey. What you could do is shuttle teams. So say, right, this team does the first 3 months, this time tag, do the next lot, something like that maybe. With regard to your multiple requests, that is horrible. Because random shit that arrives in your email box every day, just because it's someone else's time zone, it's not helpful, is it? So the best I would recommend for that is what you might call boxing up time and saying, once a week, I've made this up because I don't know the duration of the project, once a suitable time moment, we want all the requests on this thing in, and we'll analyse the whole lot in one shot, and then we'll tell you what we're doing in the next segment of time. In between the bits in the middle, we will not take any random requests for changing stuff, and then we'll move on to the next time moment. I'll stop talking about that.
Okay, there are more questions. We have time for them.
I'm Wojtek. So if you would be working with a company according to those 10 points to, I don't know, let them understand how to innovate or whatever, how to run the business better.
Yeah.
Who would be your perfect people to work with to infect them with the ideas that you've talked about just before? Would that be like the top management, middle management, or who?
This is a lovely question, thank you. No, seriously, actually. One thing we see a lot, certainly in the UK, is companies getting excited about innovation and then getting bored with it. And the most common example of that, in about a 3-year peak, is Deepjoy, the chief executive, announces that they've hired an innovation director and he's got a budget to get 30 or 50 people in, so there's a whole new innovation department. Burst of enthusiasm. 18 months later, nothing much is happening, or the chief exec has gone off the idea or got fired, and around about 2.5-year period, it's fizzling out, and after 3 years they say, well, we've disbanded that unit because we weren't really into it. And you can watch this going in waves in the UK. So to answer your question, either ride the wave of the innovation director who's on the way up early, get your work in, get the hell out of there. Yeah. Or find the top person you can find and look them dead in the eye and say, are you really serious about this? Because if you're not, there's no point in us starting.
Okay, we had some more questions.
Oh, I'll give it to you in a moment. So at the beginning you said something about the papers that you research, that the Google algorithm researched 36,000 papers and found out that 90% of the stuff just repeats itself.
Yes.
So I just wanted to ask, isn't it also because some of them were the nearest adjacent possibility?
Oh, you're good. The only thing you weren't quite right on was the number of papers. You said 36,000, which is a brilliant, accurate figure, but not quite the same as the 17.9 million that I mentioned.
Okay.
It sounded authoritative. So I would say yes to that. If that's right, then they have all been going, those breakthrough papers, for exactly the adjacent possible, if you would claim that the adjacent possible is a 10% step across from the 90%. So I agree with you.
Okay. Thanks.
Apart from 36,000.
Okay. Sorry.
One more question here? No?
There is a chap at the back there, maybe.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Łukasz, and I wanted to ask, maybe the controversial question, because do you think there's still any innovation on the market? Because each side of each company or startup you enter to says that their product or service is innovative. So the word itself is overused, as I think. So maybe we should innovate on the word itself, innovation.
He's right. We should innovate the word innovation because it's not innovative anymore. Yeah. So actually, I think this depends tremendously what type of market people work in and what categories they're working on, because everyone has a different definition of what innovation is. Some of the technical work that I think you people do is really, really innovative, I would say so. But if you go to, say, Kimberly-Clark and you're selling toilet paper, there's kind of a limit to... Yeah. And so having huge bursts of innovation in toilet paper may not really get the business very far. And when you look at the world economy, you'll find that there are huge swathes of really old-fashioned businesses which might kid themselves that they want innovation from time to time, but they don't really carry it through, and you've still got toilet paper. So I would say most of the proper innovation is happening in much more interesting markets, but probably still, I don't know, about 50% of the world GDP is boring stuff. And that's okay too.
Okay, any more questions?
Nah, they're thirsty.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
Right. Thank you very much.